100%.
Yeah.
And then what ends up is I have a pile of stuff in the garage or in the closet that I bought that I never used. Like the GoPro I bought because I thought that would help, that I've literally used like 2 times and I haven't used. And I don't really like the fisheye view. But literally I'm like, man, I just need to go out and buy $1,000 DSLR and, be awesome. But
actually the Canon M50, I hear a lot of good things about it. I think it's a lot cheaper.
Okay.
I'll have to look at more into it, but it's one of their crop sensor models that's a mirrorless camera. It's really good. It's gotten really good results, especially if you don't want to spend too much money.
Yeah,
it's really clean.
Like what kind of price range?
We'll have to look it up.
Canon M what?
M50.
M50. Not that I want to use up our time on camera shopping, but so it's about $500.
Yeah. And then and it's a mirrorless, and then you can pick up whatever lens you want. I think a lot of people go for the 16 millimeter lens. That does great. It all comes down. It's basically a 24 millimeter equivalent. Hey, Musa. My little babies.
What's up?
Can you say hi?
No, can't.
All right.
The scary guy on the TV is talking to me.
You gonna watch TV? All right, go watch TV.
Can I have your iPad?
I don't even know where my iPad is.
I know where it is.
He knows where it is.
I love that. I love that answer always by kids.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know where it is. I know where it is because I want to use it.
Hit record and just talk about it. Just have a little conversation. I mean, we had some before, so
yeah,
it's gonna be pretty straightforward.
And I love your show. I listened to a bunch of them, and the flow. Obviously, it's natural conversation, very smooth. Yeah. So it would be fun. I'm excited.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
it. And I have no prep. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I don't know what you want to talk about. I didn't review any notes before this, so
no problem. That's how I like it. All right. Welcome to another episode of Hacks and Hobbies. In this episode, we've got Jason Cutter. Jason, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Hacks and Hobbies. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited to be here. We've talked in the past, and I love interacting with you. So I'm super excited for what's going to come up today.
What's going to come up? Yes. So here on Hacks and Hobbies, I love focusing on journeys. We've all gone through many different journeys, and it enables us to grow as a human being. And everybody comes with a different set of experiences. And while I do this, I'm going to unlock the iPad so my kids can go have some fun, play some video games or whatever they want to do. And with this COVID-19, kids are everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he's like, before COVID, we'd be doing video calls, and your son would come in, and and you're giving a presentation, and the people on the video on the other side were like, your son is there, he's trying to scare you. But now everyone's like, oh, bring in your kids, bring in your dog.
Well, and it's super interesting before we even get into the conversation. I mean, it's so interesting how the world changes, and the expectation of you better be professional, and your cat shouldn't be walking in front of the camera on a video call, or if you're on a phone call and a conference call, you don't want, your significant other in the background, like talking or screaming. And now everyone is in this worldwide global situation that's all the same, whether you have kids or not, like everyone can understand it. And it makes everybody empathetic to just the things that matter the most instead of the superficial crap that doesn't matter.
Amen, man. You're so right. It's been, human beings are very adaptable beings, and COVID-19 has shown that. Yeah. Of course, for all of us, for millions of people that are working from home, unfortunately for the ones that haven't been, working from home, They're consuming content like crazy. And just to go in that same vein, I just saw a video, and it was by the Holderness family. They do these videos, and they came out with the song that rhymes, or that's a parody of Billie Jean, and they call it Quarantine.
Oh man,
when is it gonna go? It's hilarious. It's a nicely done video.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, man. So on Hacks and Hobbies, we're focusing on stories. We're focusing on journeys, and we all have a story to tell. And these stories is what enables us to come up with our why and why we do what we do. So Jason, we met through the 30 days of videos challenge. I dropped off after the fourth video this time around. But it was good chatting with you the few times that we did get to chat. And I wanted to learn more about you. What have you been doing? What's your journey? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, and I think it's always fascinating as I've come to fully embrace my journey. For the longest time, I mentally beat myself up for my kind of crazy windy path that I've been on. I compared it to the classic, let's say, American dream, or the classic direction you're supposed to go, especially me being the first one in my family to go to college. You're supposed to go to college, get a degree, get a job, work in that industry 30, 40 years, start a family, retire, and have this kind of set, stable existence, which in reality doesn't ever exist. With or without COVID. It doesn't exist, right? That's just it's not a thing anymore where someone goes and works at the factory for 40 years and retires with a pension, and then, that was it. It's just not the world we live in anymore. And so the punchline for all of this is that I am a sales consultant. So I have a consultancy, and I help companies with their inside sales teams, selling effectiveness. I'm soon to be author. I'm a podcaster. Everything I do is focused on sales and persuasion and helping people be successful. So that's the punchline. And the story really begins early on, which is what makes that so funny. When I tell people that one of the milestones in my journey is that I have a bachelor's degree in marine biology, and I spent 4 years tagging sharks, nice. Which doesn't make any sense.
Hey, it makes sense to me. It because when you're tagging sharks, you are fearless. So when you go to sales from tagging sharks, I'm like, I got this. This is I've dealt with sharks. These are people.
I gotta tell you, I'm pretty good with people now, but I would take sharks over people. I mean, as weird as it may sound, sharks are pretty predictable, right? They got one mission. They do one thing.
Yeah.
They're whether it's a 2-foot gray smoothhound shark or an 18-foot great white shark, they're pretty predictable. They do what they do, and they've been doing it for millions of years. People, on the other hand, that's a totally different thing.
Amen to that, because sharks don't talk back.
That too, for sure. That's it. And there's a dangerous end of the shark, and the key is to just stay away from that dangerous end. But with people, and obviously with people, it's a lot about mindset, and it's how people react, and just all of the variables that come with being a human. Versus animals in the animal kingdom.
Amen. That's so true. And sales and I have a totally different kind of relationship, especially growing up. When I first when I first started the job, it was all around. I was more into computers, so I was like, I'll look for computer data entry jobs. And one of the jobs that I had to work with cats. There was cats around, and I didn't know I was allergic to cats till then. So then I was like, okay, why am I crying? So anyways, my next job I was like, all right, I was doing some computer work, but I was also cold calling people and getting them to subscribe to this catalog. Like, hey, we'll send you a catalog, and then you can order these videos and these toys and for kids and whatnot. And so that was hilarious. And I was like, okay, not too bad. And then from that, somehow I got into setting up a stall where I'm selling these products. And I was like, okay, it's fine. People are coming. They like what they see. I'm going to the place that they're going to consume this content or buy this content or buy these materials. So it worked. But then at one point in my life, I was cold calling to sell used laptops. And I didn't have a mentor telling me how you approach a call or how you approach a call. I just called up like, hey, you guys want some used laptops? I'm looking for this person. So 3 months in, they're like, you're not meeting your quota. I was like, what do you mean the quota? Like, sorry, we can't keep you anymore. So from then on, I was like, you know what? I'm never doing sales ever again. Forget this. And since then, I've never done sales. I've always connected with people in a different level. And like telling you, if I had access to you, like you would have probably told me, dude, you're doing this all wrong. You got to go this way. So tell us some tips on somebody who's getting into sales. How would you approach something like that?
Well, so first off, before I get into that, what's interesting and sad is that your journey and your story with the laptop, used laptop sales, is how a lot of people end up in sales. They fall into a sales role, or they need a job, or someone says, hey, you should try sales, or they're desperate, whatever it is, they get into a sales role. There may or may not be training. Most organizations literally just throw people into it and sink or swim. There's a kind of a vicious cycle and catch 22, which is, we just hire lots of salespeople and the right ones will stick and we'll fire the rest. You don't put in the time and the investment, and then that's what you get, right? Almost a self-fulfilling prophecy and just this endless loop, it's fascinating because that's my first sales job was in the mortgage business. And my experience was, here's the phone. Here's a lead sheet. When the phone rings, ask these questions and fill out the sheet and bring it to me, and then I'll do the rest. And it was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. In the first 6 months were a painful learning experience that I still use to this day because I learned some things. So I think that's the part that's unfortunate for a lot of people who end up in sales, is they don't get some real guidance. And then what it does is what it did for you, which is gives you a bad taste in your mouth regarding sales. And you think, maybe it's me. I shouldn't be in sales. Sales isn't for me. And then on the flip side of that, one of the biggest things, and I coach people on this all the time, is that, what we think about with sales is the classic, which is, I got to sell you something. I'm going to win by making a commission by, selling you a product or service. Generally it might be a lose win, but maybe some manipulation, closing lines, sales tactics, slick things that I can say, if I could show you how this pen is going to save you money, is this something you're interested in today? Like, all that kind of stuff that it could work, but it doesn't feel authentic for people. And so a lot of times, like yourself, I have enough experience with you to know that you're really good at persuading and selling. But when somebody puts that label of sales, then they feel confined to this like weird way that it has to be done.
Right.
And then to answer your question, I think really the key is to one side be self-aware and be authentic to who you are and your style and your past and your experiences. And then the other part is to focus in sales on helping the other person by solving some problem or helping them achieve a goal or helping them buy something they want, even if it's just a TV or a camera or something like that, okay, maybe it's not solving their pain, but how can you do that? And then just using persuasion to move them forward towards what they want, if you have the solution for it.
Now, those are really excellent tips. And over the years, I've learned that because I've converted a lot of people to using, Apple iPhones and Apple MacBooks. One of my bosses back in Colorado, he's like, I've never owned a Mac before or an iPhone. And thanks to you, I'm now using iPhone and a Mac. Like, it's all because of you. And it's like, look at you, Junaid. So felt like I influenced them because of how good of an ambassador I was for the product, and then And then it's not just that I'm a good ambassador. The products also speak for themselves.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's the key, right? Like literally right before we hit record on this, we're talking about cameras. You have an amazing setup. I have a tolerable, slightly better than mediocre setup. And we're literally, I'm looking on websites because you're telling me which camera you would recommend at the low end of, DSLRs. And it's literally like, okay, maybe I should just go buy that one. And not because you're trying to persuade me, but you're as an influencer. The key is that if somebody's in an actual sales role where they're selling, let's say cameras or whatever that might be, or laptops, then you're doing essentially what you did, which is listening to me, asking questions, uncovering kind of the needs and the wants and the desires and the goals, and then making suggestions and then moving forward. Like a doctor would do, right? A doctor's not going to say, hey, your leg is broken. I think you should get it fixed. Good luck with that. Let me know if you know what you want to do. Right. They go, okay, you need help. I'm going to help you. Any questions? No. Okay, let's do it. Right. And that's the difference.
No, that's very powerful, especially when you put it in those layman terms, like clearly explaining the process, because we're all excellent at influencing each other in what we are motivated against. But
I mean, think about time when you're excited about a restaurant or a movie and you're telling everybody because you want them to have that same experience. As a salesperson, when you find that qualified prospect who fits, it's a good fit with what you have to sell and what they need, and you have to overcome challenges and objections, but it's like you also want that for them, then it really takes on it's your duty. Like it's really like what you should be doing. And then what's interesting, because obviously the whole, one of the points of your show is the journey in the past. I think one of the things that has made me really successful and helps me from a sales and then also from a coaching perspective is I was not raised by salespeople. I was in fact raised by anti-salespeople. Growing up. I mean, my mom, before she retired, she was in banking and finance. And generally what happens is they see a lot of bad people scamming other people and then having to deal with their finances and stuff like that. And so she has a pest. Growing up, we'd go to car dealerships and it would be a 5-hour fight of her just battling this manipulative salesperson for hours. And so that's how I grew up, is that's what salespeople do. You do not be, don't want to be a salesperson. Don't act like that. That's not a preferable job path.
Not at all. And that's a really good point that you mentioned, so people have had the bad experiences. Then they reiterate those same problems with television shows and movies showing those same stereotypes. So now you have the stereotypical, connection with these salespeople, where the fact of the matter is that's just Hollywood. That's not real people.
And a magnification of the negative side of sales when done wrong, right? If you think of the Boiler Rooms, the Wolf of Wall Street, the Wall Street type movies, they don't end well, which is the key to keep in mind. Like they don't end well. But that's what people think of when they hear the word sales. And at the same time, what's interesting is that's what the world does not like. Like the world does not want that, but that's just tend to seem what works.
Because the majority of that movie, you're showing all the negatives. And then at the end, the moral of the story is nobody pays attention to the moral. And what's funny is that another related thing that points to this conversation, I was watching Uncle Bob. I've been watching this guy. He's a father of agile software development. He's a software developer. And it's like 30 years ago, somebody wrote a paper on how to do proper programming, but on the front page of the cover, it said waterfall software development. And if people had paid attention and read the paper, it said, don't do it this way. So for the past 30 years, or from the 70s to the 2000s, that's what people have been doing. They've been doing it all wrong. And then they're like, you know what? There has to be a better way. Because what's funny is, and they go into the history of software development and how initially programmers were, they were not kids out of college. There
No.
were people that were bankers. There were people that had 10 years of experience in their fields that then came in to become programmers.
Right.
And I was like, wow, really? I had no idea. And then I circled back and I remembered my dad telling me that, there was a program. He was working for a national bank and there was a program, and he got in, and he basically, that's how he became a developer and a computer programmer. I was like, that is interesting. So people are focusing on the wrong thing when you should be focusing on this thing. Like, you read through the fine print, read through the whole thing to get to that point. So really good. It's tangential, but lines up with what people focus on versus what people ignore, and positivity gets ignored so much easily because negativity has so much, what's that word, it's much more spicier, right?
Well, it's spicier, it gets more attention. And, if we look at, more mindset, human mental behavior, brain science, which I have a degree in marine biology. I have a bunch of other experience.
Yeah.
I am also not a really smart brain, parts of the mind guy, like, of all that. I don't get into to details that much, but, the thing is our brains, because we still have that primal primitive lizard part of our brain, whatever you want to call it, whether it's, offends you or not, but we all have that, and it's all fighting for survival, and it all just wants to keep safe. It wants to keep us in our comfort zone and keep us safe long enough for us to procreate, and then spread our genes across the world. And then that's it, right? That part of our brain. The rest of it wants to have a different existence, but that part does. And so it's trained from 100,000 millions of years of being on the savannah or in a cave, where if you don't see that tiger coming for you, you will die. So it would rather see everything as negative, and then really play everything safe. And then it holds on to those negative things, because if you eat that berry, you could die, right? Like that's the old school part of our brain. And so when it comes to sales or anything like that in life, it's like, if I pick up that phone and someone yells at me, my ego is going to get hurt. It's going to feel like death. I should just not do that.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Excellent points. There's so many connections that I'm making in my head. The brain science and the self, and then the larger part of the brain, and how our soul is just a software on the hardware that is our body. And it's just amazing to see it from so many different perspectives, because again, we all have a different perspective, and then when we have that frequency match, it's like boom, synergy.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I love it, man. Thank you. So what are some of your motivations for the things that you're doing on a daily basis? So you've got your consulting group, you've got your coaching. What motivates you to to keep going and making these connections and helping people?
So I was 38 years old. Now I'm 44. I was 38 years old. I was sitting in Afghanistan, and I took a free Coursera course because I was looking for what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I took a course. It was called Operations Management. And I realized there was actually a title for what I love to do, which was Sales and Operations Management. And it tied in what I did. That started me down a deeper path, which then I went back to school and got my MBA, and then more self-awareness and discovery and understanding that really what drives me the most is helping people transform. And what I really love the most is that light bulb moment, whether it's a whole company and we're building systems and building a team and everything is operating well, or an individual salesperson where, it's, hey, I had trouble with this. We do some coaching, get back in there on the phone or have another meeting. Hey, this worked. That was effective. That feeling and helping people and impacting them and helping them transform, and really not just transform in order to make more money and success in that category, but success as far as like, what are you meant to be doing? What are your strengths? What are you excited about? How do you use where you've been? Like for me, I use it all the time. Like, again, my windy path, I used to be embarrassed by it. And now I realize, like, because of all that, I can talk to anybody about anything, and I can relate to a lot of different challenges in life. It helps me sell, because it's not like, I've had this perfect, stable existence my whole time. And, but anyone in any challenge, I mean, I can relate to it. And what drives me and I get excited by is just helping people, figure that out. And even if sometimes it's not sales, sometimes it's, hey, you should go do this instead. But now, because that's more authentic for you.
That's so powerful, being able to help and transform. I think transformation is one of the words that I've been listening to over and over for the past week, because I'm taking this new course, and besides the new course, in the Unconventional Leaders, so it's a Facebook group that I'm part of. We do every day. There's a Zoom call. It's called Coffee Chats. So there's like anywhere from 5 to 15 people in there, and we're having conversations just like this. It's so powerful. And a lot of the times we're talking about transformation, like and then one quote that came up was caterpillars don't speak butterfly language.
Interesting.
Because if you think of people, let's say you're on the path of leadership and success, and you're successful, and then you look back to people that you were part of before, like, they don't want to see you transform. They don't want you to change.
No.
Right. So they're caterpillars, and you go through this process of transformation. Now you're a butterfly. So the language that you're speaking, they don't understand, even though you understand their language. Right. So we've been talking about that, and like, some people are like, I feel like I'm stuck in this place between this place and this place, and these people understand what I'm trying to get to, but it's so hard. I'm like, well, you're cocooning, you're in the cocoon, you're building up those wings to grow. And I feel like I have been going through that process for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Before I got myself fired, and then I got hired again. It was like a transformation for myself. Like, whoa, what just happened, right? I'm too focused on this thing, or getting too bored, but I needed that jolt to, kickstart my own growth. And I just started to surround myself with more positive people, with more people that are more accomplished, that are doing the things that they want to do. And it all happened because I decided I wanted to start this podcast, and I started talking to people like yourself, right? Everybody's doing something, and I kept seeing the same pattern. They took the path, they kept doing it, and they kept doing it, and then they come out. So it's been really, really mind melding. It's been awesome.
That's awesome. Well, and I think the key is with that, like, the caterpillar and the cocoon and the butterfly, is that what I know for myself is I thought that's what you did in life, and then you figured it out, and then you came out of the cocoon, and there you are, and then that's who you are, and that's what you did.
Yeah.
Instead of, what happens is, it's more seasons of life and levels and plateaus and multiple cocoons, right? Unlike the caterpillar and the butterfly, it's like butterfly, okay, and then it may be a couple years later, maybe a couple months later, you're going through this like cocoon process again, and struggling and trying to figure out your way and hitting walls. And then, you figure out what door to go through next. And that's really, that's why I tell people, I mean, really, to be successful in sales and in focus, or anything that you're working on, writing a book, having a podcast, you really want to do it long-term and feel happy and successful inside. It's about connecting with why. Like, why do you want to do it? I started a podcast once years ago, and I wasn't true on my why, and I did 6 episodes and I failed, right? Then a year ago, I started my current podcast, and 5 days a week, 220 episodes in. It's like, it's the easiest thing ever, because I know why I'm doing it and what I want to do. But not to confuse that with capital P, purpose in life. Like, why am I on this planet? Why do I exist? Because you'll probably never know that until you deathbed retrospect, looking back and go, oh, okay, that's what my life was about.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point. Beautiful point. Like, especially the part about knowing your why and why you're doing the podcast. Well, because we started, myself and two of my cousins, we started a podcast back in 2012, right? We did 4 episodes. And we were like, oh, we want to do this because, Apple Insider is doing it before all these people are doing it. And we want to talk about technology because we're already talking about technology. Why don't we record it? But then it all came down to timing. It all came down to the technology that was available. It all came down to, okay, well, it's a lot of effort. You got to transfer files, you got to Dropbox this thing, you got to edit this. And now when I started this podcast, I was just researching for somebody else. And I ran into this app called Anchor. It's like, yeah, you could just record podcasts from your car, from your phone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest, because you're self-aware and you're transparent with a lot of stuff. I know from listening to the podcast and meeting you and getting to know you. Back in 2012, the reason that didn't succeed wasn't because of file sharing and technology and scheduling, right? Like those are the superficial outside things, but I would guess it's probably, not that, right?
Yep, absolutely. Cool, man. This has been a fun conversation. I love all the different topics that are coming up and, learning about each other. I think what we lack in this fast-paced time and age is these conversations that we have with each other. Because a lot of times when we go to meetings, you want to meet 10 people, you probably have 5-minute conversation, then move on. It just doesn't add up. And I think that's the other reason that I love the process, the conversations, because I'm not only having a conversation, I'm also building a relationship and learning about each other and finding that common ground.
And I think what's great too is when it's just more authentic and less about some kind of motive or plan or scripted thing or, call to action or sales pitch. I mean, it's more of just, let's talk and see what comes up. Is it valuable for us and other people? In this case, you're on a podcast, and, what is that message? And
exactly. And, just recently I heard this, a podcast episode by Amy Porterfield, and she's interviewing Neil Patel. Like, Neil Patel is, he's the guru of SEO, one of the top marketers. And so I'm listening to this episode, and it's really interesting the way they ask, like, she's asking questions, because there's an outcome that they're looking for. They want people to go download this SEO tool. They want people to, email transfers. And I'm like, that's really interesting how they're doing that. Do I want to do that in my podcast? I don't know. I mean, doesn't feel like that's my personality, but maybe that's how you become. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where she started.
Well, and that's always that balance, right? Is how much of it is sales and pushing people? Is it valuable, or are you using the platform? Is that your business? Is that your goal? There's no right or wrong. It's about what fits for you.
Yeah.
And at the same time, embracing the sales side and the persuading side, and being able to provide that value, and even if it means monetizing.
So on that note, guys, please go to hacksandhobbies.com/deals, and you can.
Oh yeah, and speaking of which, go to my website to download my.
You can get some cool offers. We've got, I've got some affiliate links on there from Amazon that I'd like to, get some.
I thought you were serious there for a second. That was awesome.
No, but there is one thing that I have just recently discovered, and one of my guests told me about this, called Acadium. And let's say you want to bring on an intern to help you with and I was like, that would be pretty cool, because I'm hiring people to do some work for me. And to be an entrepreneur, and to get 90 hours out of one day, you got to have 9 people working, with you. So I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. So he said, for 3 months, you can get somebody to do 10 hours a week work for you for a very nominal fee. Basically, they're connecting you with a person that's now going to be under your apprenticeship. So you're
Makes
the
sense.
mentor, they're a mentee. I'm like, that's pretty cool. You know, I would, because I love teaching people. I love sharing my knowledge. I'm like, I can teach somebody how to do, you know, these different things. So that's been pretty exciting to see. You know, I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. But anyways, at this point of the conversation, I have some few questions that I like to ask my guests and, you know, get to know. And what's interesting, you know, I'm trying many different ways. I'm like, okay, should I ask this question at the beginning of the conversation to get some more, or should I have it in the end? And it's been back and forth. I've tried it in the beginning when the guest doesn't have a lot of journey to share.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm gonna go to the questions to let you open up a little bit more. But we've had a good connection, so we were able to open up to each other.
Yeah.
So, what is one hobby that you wish you got into?
I would say the biggest thing that I've started several times and then quit, but still think I could have gone a different path, was playing the drums.
Oh my God, the drums.
That is one thing. Like, I picked it up many times. I bought like electronic drum sets when I didn't want to have a full drum set in the house. I've taken lessons, like groups of lessons several times. Nice. And I could feel it in me. I just never continued with it. I've never made it an important hobby.
Man, I love drumming. I just could never get the could never break
the hand coordination down.
I could never break the coordination between my feet and my hands.
Yeah.
And I've seen several drum solo videos on YouTube where they've got this elaborate setup. They've got like 4 cameras, and then they're just going at it, covering different songs. I'm like, holy smokes.
Again, and I think the key is, and this is a good lesson for anybody when we're talking about sales or drumming or anything. I mean, the key is that when you watch somebody like that, they have reached a level of mastery that, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours, very intentional, focused, practiced and playing, not just, practicing to goof around.
Yeah.
And always remember that they started out as a novice, a rookie, and a hot mess at some point, unless they're just born a prodigy at like 2 years old, which happens. But otherwise, they didn't get there instantly and overnight.
Mm-hmm. So, absolutely.
And with that being said, I still watch those videos and I feel bad. And then I think I can't do that. I can't play the drums like that. I can do other things really well.
Yeah.
Not that. No.
Well, that's okay, man. I try to play the guitar, and I was actually in the band.
Nice.
And my drummer buddy, who's awesome, and I just did the singing part. I was like, I can do singing, and singing as long as I have lyrics in hand, because I still suck at remembering lyrics. I can't do that part either.
There you go.
So, anyways, I was like, I'm probably good at podcasting because I don't have to remember everything.
There you go. Perfect. No hand coordination, really.
No, none of that necessary, right? Yeah. All right, next question. What did you want to be when you were a child?
So I would say, I didn't really have good career goals. It's probably why I ended up a partial leaf in the wind throughout my life for a while there. But definitely before my shark phase, I was in a heavy dinosaur phase. This is in the 80s, right? So this is pre-Jurassic Park. But something to do with dinosaurs, because my room was full of dinosaurs until, I basically found sharks, and then all that went out the window.
Nice. I like it. All right, next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
So I'm always bad at this. People always ask me this just throughout life. Like, what's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? Yeah. I mean, I don't ever have, it just depends on my mood, right? So if we're talking about movies. I love like Shawshank Redemption. And then I like other movies which most people haven't heard of that were just what we watched as a family that my parents really liked, and then I've just come to like them, like what about Bob and My Blue Heaven and all these weird movies most people have never seen. Like literally I know them word for word, and I'll put them on in the background and like they just play. So it really just depends. Movies like Boiler Room, which I know is a terrible like sales approach movie, like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of that movie, there's actually some really good sales kind of approaches and information. I usually watch the first like 10, 15 minutes and turn it off, but it just depends.
Nice. The movie you mentioned, What About Bob? I've been wanting to watch that movie. I've never seen that movie. I've seen the title of it scroll around, and I was like, anytime I hear the word Bob, it like turns that on. What about Bob? Right? And so I'm gonna have to check that movie out. I recently watched Rocketeer, which is on Disney Plus, and nice. I've been wanting to watch that movie for the longest time. And I watched it, and I didn't know that it was on Disney. I didn't know it was a Disney production. And then I'm like watching on this. I'm like, that's Iron Man. That's Cars. That's airplanes. Because if you look at the Planes movie, they're doing he's doing racing, and this Mister was a crop duster before he got into.
Well, and really, there's only so many movie themes.
Exactly.
So the question is, did you like it? Did you like Rocketeer?
I liked Rocketeer. It was cheesy, but it was well made. It was a lot of good characters, a lot of good actors in there, and I was like, "What? That's Jennifer Connelly? Like she's so young in that movie." And I was like, "Holy smokes, good."
Well, and the reason why I ask is what I found is interesting, and I've seen this in myself and others, is that if you watched a movie when you were younger or when it came out, 80s, 90s, 2000, if you watched it, you remember it, you liked it, you have an attachment to it. And then as an adult, if you tell somebody who's never seen it, or you try to sit down with somebody who's never seen that movie, like I've done that where I've sat down with people and said, hey, let's watch What About Bob? They literally don't get it, and they don't think it's funny because they don't have that same attachment to it, or, it's not timeless. So you had to like know what was going on in the world at the time.
Exactly.
So it's always interesting when people say, oh, you got to check out this movie. And I watch it and I go, that was terrible. I don't get it. Yeah, I just don't get it. But it's their like favorite.
Like I did the same thing with Groundhog Day, right? I had the kids watch it, and they were like, wait, what's happening? It's the same day.
Yes, that's the period we live in. Was that just did you show them the documentary of the
I did not show them the documentary.
The COVID documentary?
The COVID documentary. Oh my god. What's funny is that when we watched that movie, shortly after we saw I think Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah.
And I think Jeep, right?
Yep.
Jeep Rubicon did it.
Yep. Super funny.
It was super funny. It was absolutely awesome. And then another one of my favorites is Top Gun.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the one that's dropping this year.
The new one.
The new one, Maverick.
Well, and again, right? Do people who never saw Top Gun, if they watch it now, the original, would they understand it? Because it's so cheesy 80s.
It's so cheesy.
But it's awesome and it's cheesy. And, are you prepared for that?
Yes. All right. On that note, we've talked about a lot of movies, a lot of classics. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
I would say I'm a Jason Bourne type of, thing. In my windy path, which we didn't talk about, I also had some time as an adult, like I mentioned, being in Afghanistan. I was actually a civilian contractor working with the military, deployed many times, not doing tactical stuff on the ground, but doing some other stuff. But yeah, I watched those Jason Bourne, James Bond type movies.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be. I think I could do that. Yeah, no problem. Why not? I did jujitsu once. Like I could totally do that. Yeah.
It's got stunt doubles.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Next question. is one of my favorites. Who is your favorite superhero? You can tell that by looking at my background.
I know exactly right. Favorite. I don't know. I guess like favorite superhero might be something in line with with an Iron Man or a Batman. Again, I don't have favorites. I don't do well with favorites in general.
Sure.
But I like the fact that those are just normal people who have figured out a way to do super awesome stuff, right? Without being bitten by something or exposed to something or whatever. But they have the tools and they're super smart and they're pulling in these resources.
They decided.
And they decided to be, and then they're making it happen, and then just creating the tools they need for themselves. I'm sure that speaks to some deeper level thing about me. But I mean, it'd be cool to be Superman and flying, but to be able to have that dual, like, hey, I'm just a normal person, and I could just create what I want.
Yes.
And, do that.
Absolutely, and I totally loved that about Tony Stark and Iron Man. His entire arc of from where he started to what he became, and then to what it all came down to. And you see the evolution of the man, you see the evolution of the human being, and it almost like the topic, like the thing we were talking about earlier, we cocoon throughout life because we are growing. Every phase of our life, we shed some things and we gain wisdom, we gain momentum, we gain, so I think there was a lot of that happening in that movie and the entire arc of the movies. And I think that really pulled me because he's figuring things out, and I love figuring things out. I like tinkering and I like putting things together. So I think that was really what drew me even closer to him. Plus Robert Downey Jr., he just killed it, man.
And that hero's journey is great. He's going through it all the time. He's always struggling. He's not perfect. And this is what's true for life for most people. It might seem like they have it together in one area, and then another area might be a hot mess. I mean, each part of your life and wherever you're at is a different bucket. When things are good in all areas, it's great, but usually it's good here and you're growing here or challenged here. And so that kind of story, it's, obviously always a hero's journey, but still,
Yep,
you watch it and you go, wow, he's still a mess. Yeah.
All right. Last question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I think like the game of life, but I don't know. I mean, maybe the game of you ever play the game Trouble? You familiar with that one?
I think so.
Maybe something like that. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm not sure. There's so many games out there. I mean, Monopoly, I love the game of Monopoly. And like when I play that, and what's interesting is when I play that, when I see other people play it, they usually play the game how they also play their life. And so they're either taking risks, right? Like Monopoly, for example, they land on a property and there's the people who are just like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm just going to buy everything. Not even the strategy of winning, just because in their life, there's ready, fire, aim. And that's the kind of person that's like, fire, fire, fire. Oh, wait, aim, fire, 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 aim. And then there's the other people who are ready, aim, 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 and they never fire. And they land on a property in Monopoly, and then they don't buy it because they don't know, and what if, and they got to hold their money, and maybe there's a better deal, and then they get obliterated by people like me because I buy up everything. A, it's the strategy, and B, I just don't care. It's also a game. And it's interesting when you step back and look at how people play board games or anything, and it's usually who they are and how they're playing their life.
That's really interesting. So when I played Monopoly, it's been a while ago, so I don't remember what I did. But the interesting point that you were mentioning, right? People are holding on to their money, wait to see for the better opportunity. What was funny is that where you are right now, is the best opportunity.
Yeah, always.
Right? Always.
Yeah. Well, and it's good to be smart, right? You got to have a balance between the two sides, but ready, aim, fire, and then aim, fire, readjust, fire, and just keep going, right?
Yeah. Earlier today, I was watching Viktor Frankl's video on, the search for
man's search for meaning.
Yeah, man's search for meaning. And in this video, he draws a little thing on the board. He says, when the plane takes off here and the wind is heading north, and the plane has to land, so it takes off on the east and it has to land on a certain spot. They're not going to go straight, because if they do, they're going to miss the spot because the wind is pushing you. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with us. Where you want to go is not where you want to be pointing. You want to aim higher, so then you would land to the capability that you can come to.
And constantly adjust, right? Like if you say, I want to hit this goal, I want to do this thing, and then it doesn't happen, but you didn't adjust and you were just like heads down, focused on one path, you're gonna miss it, and then you're gonna be disappointed. And it's really about adjusting and calibrating, and then really, like, what it comes down to, like we talked about earlier, with having a why and a reason why you're doing it. The why is the destination, which is, here's why I'm doing this. I want to get to this spot, right? I want to fly to this location. The how and the what, you got to figure out along the way and adjust your course. But you got to know where you're going and
Absolutely. Why. Absolutely, my man. That was awesome. Thank you so much, man. This was a fun conversation. It opened up my mind. We got connected on a what's that, quantum level.
There you go.
And it was awesome. So for my audience, where can they find you, connect with you?
Best way to connect that I'm most active is on LinkedIn. So I spend a lot of time on there. That's where we connected. We're doing the 30 days of videos. So I'm pretty active on there. Chat with me, message me. I mean, I like to just chat and talk to anybody about sales, whether you're owner, manager, sales rep, talk about life, like just conversations like this is super fun. You never know where it's going to go. And then my website, cutterconsultinggroup.com. I have articles on there. I have my podcast links on there. And then also, and this is, the slight call to action, but just because I think it's helpful, because that's why I put it together, is, the ebook that I put together. And then I have a program called Authentic Persuasion, which is really about helping salespeople, make that shift and find out if they can be successful in sales by, being themselves and doing it their way, instead of, feeling like they have to manipulate or, maybe even change careers. So, and it's really about self-awareness. I mean, that's really what I want. If I could just help everybody realize I could be in sales, or I shouldn't be in sales, but for the right reasons, then I've done my job.
Fantastic, man. That was really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll be sure to include the links and how to connect with you in the podcast notes, the show notes. And thank you so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you, and thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Bye.